Coach, thanks so much for taking time to be with us today. And
Sure.
Really appreciate it. Tell us about your growing up years and kind of your love for sports.
Well, it started probably simply because my dad was a sports writer.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. My dad was sports editor of the Knoxville Journal for 40 years, or he was a writer and became sports editor. And his particular beat, as they call it in that business, the thing he covered consistently while he was there was the University of Tennessee basketball program. So as a young boy, I got to go to all the games. In fact, when I was old enough to, I guess, count quarters, I sold programs. And then when the buzzer went off for the game to start, I didn't have to sell them anymore because they don't need programs after the game starts, theoretically. And I got to go sit down under my dad's feet, under the score table on the edge of the court, and watch major college basketball games when I was 9, 10, 11 years old. And so that had to have a lot to do with it.
Oh, yeah. Did you dream about playing for University of Tennessee?
Sure. As a
Yeah.
kid, that's what I would have wanted to do.
Yeah.
They had very good teams. Ray Mears was the coach at that time, and he'd come in and really started competing with Kentucky and Adolph Rupp and those great programs. And so certainly I took T-shirts, and at that time you couldn't buy merchandise. People don't realize there really wasn't all this merchandising. So I'd get orange crayons and make my own shirts and go out in the driveway and shoot. And sure, that's what I would like to have done, but there are not a lot of 5'9" guys out there playing that can't jump or anything else. So I played a little junior college basketball, but honestly, I did go back, and after going to school at UT just as a quote-unquote regular student, they started a junior varsity program. Freshmen became eligible. Some people remember Ernie Grunfeld, Bernard King, a great era in Tennessee basketball.
Yeah.
Freshmen became eligible, and so instead of having just a freshman team, they had a JV team, and they asked me to come out and be a walk-on JV team player. And so then I played on the JV team for 1 year and practiced for the varsity. So I practiced for both teams, sometimes 5 hours of practice. And then the next year I was a graduate assistant coach, but I still practiced with the varsity team. So I never played in a varsity game, but I did get to be a part of the program.
How fun. That was great. Some great players, too, you named.
For sure.
So tell us about your faith journey growing up. When did you come to know the Lord, and kind of your spiritual journey in there?
You know, we were a church-going family. Went to Sevier Heights Baptist Church in Knoxville, but inconsistent to some degree. I went to all the vacation Bible schools and all that stuff. But probably as I got into high school and college, when you get a little more of your independence, I didn't. I went. I was saved. I was, as a young, probably 11-year-old boy. But you know, you get there. Who knows what your path is? And grew away from. I didn't grow away from believing. I just wasn't as consistent in my faith and thinking about it as I used to be. But as you get to the point where you're starting to get married and you mature a little bit, you start realizing there's some things more important than others. And so I give a lot of credit to my wife now. Her father was a minister at a small rural church up in the Cumberland Plateau, and she has a deep, strong faith that keeps me on the right track.
Praise God for that.
Yep.
Yeah. You married well. Good job.
For sure.
So when did you become the head coach here at Belmont? You've been here 33 years.
It was 1986.
Okay.
I started my coaching career at Maryville College in East Tennessee, a couple of years as an assistant, and then 2 years as a head coach. I was 25 and I was a head coach. Went to Tennessee Tech as an assistant for 3 years. Kind of missed being the head coach, honestly, and went to Lincoln Memorial University and up above Knoxville about an hour for 3 more years. And then this job came open, and I was very fortunate to know some people that knew the right people, and I felt like this school had great potential, and that's proven to be true. Certainly in the last 33 years, how this school has grown and become such a big part of Nashville. But I also thought the basketball program had a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've built a great program here, and I know it's taken a lot of people around you, but just that faithfulness and consistency. And when did you start to see it kind of change and become, more of a, national, program?
Well, we've really had two different. A lot of people want to be Division I head coaches. When I came here and tried to become competitive with what was David Lipscomb College at the time, we were Belmont College. We had a long way to go, and all I wanted to do was get this program to where we were competitive with them, and Trevecca, frankly, had a very good program. So that was NAIA basketball. That was not NCAA Division I. There was no thought in anyone's mind here when I came that this would be a Division I school and we'd be playing Duke and North Carolina and Kentucky and those schools. So, I was just trying to become competitive with two nationally competitive NAIA programs, and we were able to do that. We had in 1995 we finished 37-2. We were ranked number 1 in the country in the NAIA for most of the year and lost in the semifinals of the national tournament. In 96, we went back to the semifinals of the national tournament, and that was our last year in the NAIA. Just prior to that, Dr. William Trout, our president, made the decision that Belmont was growing in a lot of different ways, and the way he put it was when he looked around what kind of neighborhood did he want to be in, and he looked at Samford, he looked at Davidson, he looked at schools like that we were becoming more like, and they were all Division I athletically. So it wasn't really because we were great at anything. He just felt like that it enhanced the school for us to make that move. Mm-hmm. And so then you're starting all over again. You've got to build it. You're not in a conference, you can't go to the NCAA tournament, you don't have a Division I gym. And you're trying to recruit much better players than you had to when you were in the NAIA. And we had 4 or 5 years where I was proud of some years, and we got it handed to us sometimes during that time too. It was inevitable. And fortunately, the Curb Event Center was built. We got in the Atlantic Sun Conference, so we had a path to the NCAA tournament. Made that happen in 2006, and obviously success helps you gain more success.
That's great. What's been your greatest moment in sports?
Wow, that's an interesting question. There's been a lot that I think back, and some of them are minor. When I was the coach at Maryville College, a Division III school, we went up to Carson Newman, which was an NAIA power at the time, and beat them on the road. And I can still remember that as maybe the first big coaching victory of my life. And I remember games we lost. We went to Vanderbilt in 1990 and played Lipscomb because we thought we could get a good crowd, us and Lipscomb together, made that decision. And we lost that game 124-107. But we had 16,000 people crammed in Memorial Gym down there. And just to be a part of that night and to see what had happened, and we raised money for Vanderbilt Children's Hospital that night, playing that game. Certainly the first time, the year prior to that, we went over to Lipscomb in the NAIA tournament. They were 38-1 at the time, and Joe Bailing, a great post player for us, scored 58 points, and we upset them over there. And then we came back home and beat Lincoln Memorial University with a bunch of my former players on that team to go to the NAIA tournament for the first time. So that win at Lipscomb was huge. 2006, to go to the NCAA tournament, we played Lipscomb in Johnson City in the A-Sun championship game. and we're very fortunate and won the game in overtime. And so that's another meaningful highlight for sure. We lost to Duke in the 2008 NCAA tournament by 1 point and became sort of a national team that night, sort of the game of the night in the NCAA tournament. Tough to lose. Think back on that and what could we have done differently late in the game to win that game. And then a few years ago, we went over to North Carolina and Chapel Hill and got a win at North Carolina, and that's always a national win for sure. So those are some that come to mind quickly.
That's great. Well, praise God. You've had some just exciting moments there.
Yeah, and there are other wins. People tend to think about us as a division. We've been 20 years now a Division I program, but there were huge wins back in the NAIA days. You know, one of the statements you hear a lot of times is the big time is where you are. And it's just as important to small college players and coaches and programs to win championships. And those moments mean just as much as they do to North Carolina last year when they won the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
It's just where you are and how important it is to you. And so just really lucky to have a lot of great players that have made a lot of great plays over the years, and exciting times. And I guess the best thing about it all to me is that hopefully our basketball program has been something that's created some pride among our students and our alumni and the people that support this school, and giving them something to talk about and look forward to.
Yeah. The big time is where you are. I like that. That's great. Talk about, college basketball's changed a lot in your 33 years, here at Belmont, but just coaching-wise. But even recently, there's been a lot of things that have been impacting college basketball. What are some of the big changes you've seen over those years?
Well, the game has kind of gone, it seems to somewhat copy the NBA rules. About the time I came to Belmont when they started the shot clock and the three-point line. So the first years I coached, there was no shot clock and there was no three-point shot. And I'm one of the few guys left that coached that way, probably. And so I actually was the chairman of the rules committee for NCAA basketball rules 4 years ago or so, and we implemented a lot of changes. And you study a lot of organizations. You study FIBA, which is the international organization. You study the NBA, the rules they've made that have helped the flow of the game, hopefully reduced some of the physicality of the game. But in those 33 years that I've been here, the size and speed and strength of the athlete, the training techniques, the nutrition, all the things that are focused on now has been the biggest change. The athletes that are playing in that same 94 by 50 foot space out there today are bigger and faster than they were 30-something years ago. Wow. And so the emphasis on defense, the emphasis on physicality, if you watched a game from the 80s right now, you wouldn't believe how little they even touched one another in a game. And I watched an NBA game 2 nights ago where I thought there were 6 fouls on each end of the court every time that weren't called, Yeah. So a lot's changed in that regard.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where you feel like your faith in Christ and your desire to do the right thing has had a tension with winning, and kind of in college sports there's almost a win at all cost? Have you ever felt a tension there?
I haven't.
Okay.
Now I don't. No, I've never felt like it was okay to do the wrong thing to try to be successful. I think that's part of my faith, but I also think it's just part of the character that I was handed from my parents and the people that I admired. John Wooden is a great example of a guy that was a great coach when I was a young man, deciding to be in this business. And you can you can go back today. There's a thing called the Wooden Wisdom newsletter, and just so many things. And people, maybe people don't know, but he was a man of great faith, and very much a part of what he believed and said openly. I'm not sure he could today, frankly, unfortunately, you know, was about his faith and what his father handed to him and taught him. So it's like I play a lot of golf, and I'm not going to go improve my lie in the rough and hit a better shot because of it and say that I shot 75 when I would have shot 77 or 78 or maybe nowadays, unfortunately, 84 instead of 86. It's just, you're supposed to play the game, and I don't mean just on the court, but the game of recruiting rules, guidelines, the way you do it. You're supposed to play it according to what the NCAA tells you in our case, or the rules of golf if you're on the golf course. Otherwise, you're really not playing golf. You're making up your own game. And so I haven't felt it. I haven't felt like taking shortcuts. I haven't felt like bringing young men into Belmont University that I think would not be good for Belmont, would not enhance it. My job here, I think, is for the men's basketball program to enhance Belmont University in every way that it can. And some of that's winning championships and all that, but a lot of it is how our players represent the school on campus, off campus, as a team, as individuals.
I love that example that you used, because wasn't it Bobby Jones who grounded his club in the sand trap and nobody saw it, and when he got to the end he called a penalty on himself and it cost him the tournament.
There's been a lot of guys that have done that, actually. I mean, there's been a lot of instances in golf where and that's one of the reasons that I love golf, is because our times are changing, and what's okay and some things become, there's a slippery slope in some areas, but golf hasn't gone down that road. It stayed true to the integrity of what the game's supposed to be. So Bobby Jones hands it off to Byron Nelson, who hands it off to Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer, and on down the line, and players do call penalties on themselves that no one saw, and it could cost them championships and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they still do it.
Yeah. And what he said, well, you don't compliment a man for not robbing a bank.
Exactly.
You know? It's just what you do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but it seems like that's not the attitude a lot of times in bigger athletics. And I think so much money and endorsements and shoe contracts, and so it makes it more of a challenge, I think.
It does, but what is all that worth really in the long run?
Yeah.
And it's just like in my case, I will get asked occasionally, why'd you stay at Belmont so long, or why didn't you try to go to a major conference school or that sort of thing? And at some point of the maturity of my life, I realized that the quality of life that I had in Nashville and at Belmont University, the kind of young men that I could recruit and coach here, were a great fit for me, and the money becomes way less important, or the fame. There are people. There are all kinds of different people, and not any are right or wrong. But some people would love to be the head coach of Kentucky and get all the adulation that comes with that, and I don't have any interest in that. It's fine with me that I just come to work every day at Belmont, and we try to have a good practice and a good game, and that I can just go home and be Rick Byrd instead of somebody that's, hey, I like to play golf. If I was the head coach at Kentucky, they'd be saying he's playing way too much golf and not watching enough video or something like that. So, everybody has different ideas of what they want their life to be like.
But that's some great wisdom, though, and I think there's a lot of guys who may be watching this even today who, you get offered a promotion, but it's going to be a move, or you're going to have to travel, and you're going to be away from your kids and away from your family.
Right.
You don't get that time back.
No, you don't.
And to think about, what's really important, and our society values money almost more than anything else, instead of valuing faithfulness and valuing making a difference and work ethic and determination and you know.
We're all going to be faced with those kind of things, especially if you happen to have some success and somebody wants to recruit you to a better job, better money. You may have to move and do this and do that. And then you have to weigh, well, in the long run, this might be better for my family. You know, maybe I don't see them as much for 2 or 3 years, but I'll see them a lot more for the next 25 once I get this thing going. And that's, so you've always got, it's not easy. And mine wasn't necessarily right. I just think it's right for me.
Yeah.
But there's no question they're tough calls. But and look, I'm cheap. I don't spend money. I'm always glad to have it. But it's you know, having it is not going to run my life or my family's life.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why Jesus said you can't serve two masters, right?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
you can't serve both God and money, and you know, we try to run after that so many times. And,
sure.
And but I think you're just looking at that value system of integrity and faithfulness and family and what's right, and putting that into the equation instead of just, hey, go after win at all cost, go after, you know, what the world would say. That's important.
Well, it's right for me. And
yeah.
Like I say,
well, it's right for everybody, and I think
Well,
so.
I just, you know, I'm not gonna criticize somebody that wants to become the best they can be in their business.
Right.
But and that's okay in that right to want to excel is okay, but to want to excel because you have more fame or have more money, and everybody knows your name and all that kind of stuff. I mean, please, all the reality shows and all the stuff anymore that it's about me kind of thing is just way too much in my opinion. And if there's anything I would take from God's Word is that we need to look at a little bit more is just a little dose of humility.
That's a good word, Coach. Thanks. So what do you want? You have these players, right? And you're not just teaching them X's and O's. You're not just teaching them basketball. You really are shaping young men. What do you hope they leave your program with? What are the things that you say?
Well, you know, first of all, I think that coaches forget real easily because of the drive for championships and winning games and all that goes with it. We're all wired that way. I hate losing.
Yeah.
Okay, I hate losing way more than I enjoy winning, frankly, anymore, and that's kind of too bad. But it's the way I'm wired, and it would be anything. We could go out here and play horse or ping pong or whatever, and if you beat me, I'd have a bad day already. Okay, and so we all get that. But I think coaches forget, particularly those of us that are part of a educational institution, whether it's high school or college, that we are maybe the biggest part of our young men, and it's only, in my case, 15 or 16 guys, plus some student managers, and you know, so I probably impact 25 kids a year. We're part of their education, and the biggest part of their education. They see and hear what I say and my staff says more than they do their history teacher or English teacher or any particular teacher. So that's something I try to keep in mind. And so I'm old school about some things, and it matters to me, and they need to understand. I think it'll matter to them in the long run about appearance. You're not going to see a lot of long hair. You're not going to see a lot of facial hair. Hopefully you're going to see our guys groomed and neat. Their appearance is important. It's going to matter to some people, and it's not going to matter to others. But we're going to look neat and clean when we travel. Our guys joke about. All I have to say now is tomorrow we got airport clothes, and that means no hats, no shirt tails out, no jeans, no tennis shoes. They don't have to wear a coat and tie, but they need to look neat. And so that's the way we travel. Is that the way they would choose to travel every time? It's not. But you got to have standards somewhere, and mine are a little more old school than others. We don't walk in and out of places, restaurants, hotels, into gyms, out of gyms, listening to our music. to me, it looks like what I'm saying is what I want to listen to is more important than me saying, "How are you doing today? Thank you. Yes, ma'am. No, sir." And come on, I like music. Does anybody like music that much that they have to be listening when they walk in and out of a bus, into a gym, into a restaurant? We don't. They don't have their phones out when we're eating team meals. That's hard today.
Yeah.
That's hard for all of us. But they need to talk to one another. So there's just a lot of things. We don't. Our staff doesn't use profanity. We don't allow profanity on the court. That may sound like that's a common sense thing, but in our world, it's not. In the world of coaching, of a lot of sports, it's not. And I don't get it because I don't think the English teacher can do that. I don't think the math teacher can do that. So why is it okay for coaches to do it? I don't think it is. It happens. I got a lot of friends who coach that way, that I personally like them, but I just wish I wish that mattered a little bit more in what we do. So anyway, and you know, an illustration of what I think is means more to me than championships and all the adulation you might get here and there because you're winning. Everybody loves a winning coach, and nobody really cares about the losing coaches, except to blame them. But when we go on the road, another thing we talk about is leaving the locker room looking better than how we found it, and just being gentlemen. So we went to the NIT last year, and our first round game was at Georgia, and when you go play an SEC level school, a Power 5 conference school, they always have a security policeman with the head coach. Walks them out on the floor, sits behind the bench, walks them back. I guess unfortunately that's just something that about today's world, but it's that way everywhere. So we were lucky enough to win the game at Georgia last year, big win for our team. And as we were leaving, as my wife Cheryl and I were leaving to walk to the bus, we changed into when you ride the bus, you get to be a little more casual clothes, and so we had tennis shoes and warm-up gear on. The policeman said, "Coach, I've been doing this here at Georgia for over 20 years. So I've seen every team come in and out of here for the last 20 years. And that is the most gentlemanly, polite group of young men we've ever had down here." So, you know,
awesome.
And that sounds, I'm sorry if that sounds like bragging, but
No.
my point is that, first of all, they learned a lot of that from their moms and dads and their influences before they ever came to Belmont. But I asked that policeman to come on the bus and say that very thing to them, because they need to know that it matters, that people notice, and that it matters how you act and how you look and the way you represent Belmont.
Yeah. We forget sometimes that people are watching all the time, you know, and it matters, you know. And
well, whether we all think it's a good thing or not, and right now our world's full of different things about observing how athletes act and do and so on, but people, young boys and girls in particular, they have favorite players, they have favorite teams.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, I wore the numbers of the guys that I liked the most when I was in high school, and we want to be like those people, and so those guys are having an impact. We have basketball camps in here every year with hundreds and hundreds of boys, and the way they treat them in camp is impacting how those kids are going to grow up.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to a father whose kids are starting out playing sports, and what would you say to them about kind of this advice as far as sports and the importance of it and how you parent as well?
Well, first, I think at a young age, and gosh, you can play soccer when you're 2, I think, almost, but in those really young years, up to say double figures at least, you let them You may expose them to the different things, but let them play what they want to play and let them have fun playing it. And there's nothing worse than seeing kids yelled at because they dropped a pass or forgot to play or whatever at any young age. And I'm not one of these everybody gets a trophy kind of thing. I understand that, but that's for later on. The trophies and the championships and demanding more. I think it's okay. We have discipline in our basketball camps. They've got to pay attention. They've got to try hard. But we try to make basketball fun for those kids, because if it's not fun here, and maybe that's their first exposure to it, it's certainly an early exposure to it, then they may just quit playing basketball. If you're out there making them run sprints and doing push-ups and getting after them because they made mistakes, and it's not going to be a fun experience. And you can do everything you need to do and still make it enjoyable for those kids, so they'll keep playing the game. So I think letting kids play all different sports as often as possible is good. I would be okay right now if one of our guys wanted to go pitch baseball when the season was over with, or play on the golf team or tennis team or whatever they could. And I would do it if I was a high school coach, because my program's not all there is in the world, okay? If that kid's good at golf or tennis, and then good enough to help our team, go ahead and do so. He might break an ankle doing it, I don't know, but hopefully not in golf. No. Well, maybe he hit a shot down off the hill and he turned his ankle. I don't know, but you know what I mean. Some coaches just scared to death they're going to get hurt. Won't let their kids do any intramurals or those kind of things. This is basketball. It's not brain surgery. It's not the most important thing in the world. So I think letting young kids play what they want to play, encourage them to do so, but never being hard on them, except about paying attention or giving effort. Don't let them stand there on one end and when everybody's running down to the other. That's okay, but that I think, and I mean, even as they go through the rest of the time, there's nothing worse for kids than I'll go watch high school games and recruiting and so on, and if the parents are living and dying with everything their kid does, that's way too much pressure on that young man. Let the coach coach the team. Be supportive of the coach. Even if you don't think he's very good, even maybe he's not very good. You can't undermine the coach by telling your kid to shoot the ball more often, or that you should be playing a lot more, that sort of thing. So be supportive, teach them teamwork. There's nothing better than being a great teammate. Teach kids those things as they go through. Expect effort, expect them to pay attention, but expect them to be unselfish and be a great teammate. Don't worry about whether they're leading scorer or not, I think. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
That's good. What advice would you give to guys who are coaching at Little League, or I've got kids who I coach in their little sports, and we're not professional coaches like you are, but what advice would you give to all of us who are out there trying to coach?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story, and then you won't want to ask me the question. I was coaching my little girls' softball team, and one little girl that hardly ever got a hit it, and it was a close play at first base, and the umpire didn't really make the call very loud, or couldn't tell. She couldn't tell. I couldn't tell whether she was safe or out. So she starts walking off the field, thinking she's out because she's got such low self-esteem to begin with. This is not one of my daughters, but just another little girl on the team. And the guy just goes, "You're out. You left the base. Go in the dugout." So, long story short, I ended up about over the swing set watching the rest of the game because the umpire threw me out of the game. So you're talking to the wrong guy about that. Not because I wanted to be on the base so our team would win, but because I knew how important it was that little girl
get a hit.
To get a hit,
Yeah.
and at least to be treated fairly. Just tell them, no, I called you safe, come on back, or no, you were out, go ahead, whatever the case may be. So anyway, I think it's a lot of the same advice we just talked about, I guess, or at least John Wooden had a nice quote. I shouldn't say advice because I like this a lot. People would ask him for advice. He said, I won't give you advice, but I'll tell you my opinion. There's a little bit of a different. People want to jump in with their advice sometimes. But I think demanding the things I talked about is okay. Paying attention, focusing on what we're trying to do, giving as good an effort as you can give. But I think until you're way up into almost school age, competitive, keeping scores, putting the results in the newspaper kind of thing, I think all the kids need to play. I think you need to make it fun for them. I think, for example, in basketball, I think every coach ought to play man-to-man defense. Zone defenses in little kids is probably going to win more games, but man-to-man will teach them better about how to become better basketball players. And I think that should be your focus when you're coaching a team. Help all those kids improve their skills and get better, because someday it is going to matter. And they're either going to play or not play at all, depending on their skill level. But when they're young, thinking about nothing but championships, it's fine for everybody to want to win, but not, there's just too many youth level coaches and parents that are way too into it, way too hard on kids, and it's really all about them. Take yourself out of it. You're not going to get a raise. You're coaching a team. You're not going to get a raise because you win a championship. You're not going to get plastered all over the newspaper. You're not, the best thing you can do is what's right for the kids.
That's great. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because you see it all the time. When you're out there coaching, you're just like, man, settle down, And
well, I'm afraid me saying it's not going to change a whole lot. I'm afraid that's human nature, and we're going to see it a lot. But I really wish that, there's just no training,
Right.
People are auto mechanics and bank tellers, and they're out there all of a sudden. Now they're a coach. How do you do it? There's no training for them. It'd be like me trying to go do their job. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Don't try to get me to fix a car.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. And so it's tough to expect them to be good, but what you see in the movies and TV shows about coaches are yellers and screamers, and so that's what they think they need to be sometimes.
Yeah, and I loved your advice. I mean, just let the kids have fun, and let them learn and, develop their skills and at those ages. And I think we can all take those lessons, because
but it's hard. We all do want to win. Most of us want to win.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to play this player the minimum amount of required time, and this player the maximum amount of time that they're allowed to play, if there's those kind of rules, just so you can win games. But is that really what's best for the kids? And I think not, actually.
Right. What keeps you going, Coach? What gets you excited? I mean, that 33 years, and what is it that gets you up and just like?
I think I'm different now than I was. I think I'm not as demanding or tough or as much of a yeller as I was as a young coach. All of us hopefully mature in the process. I don't know any coach that matures into more of a yeller and screamer and being harder on their players than they were when they first started. I think it almost always goes the other way. So I think what keeps me going are the young men that we have in our program. I don't think I'd still be coaching if I couldn't attract, if I wasn't at a school like Belmont, a strong academic school, a Christian school that attracts the kind of young men that will represent our team, like I just told you the story about the Georgia story, that kind of thing, or the people in the hotels that talk about our team, or the restaurants and those kind of things. So I'm lucky. I have so many fewer, if that's correct English, issues Our guys go to class. They do extremely well in the classroom, like 16 straight years of a team 3.0 GPA and higher, and the most academic All-Americans in Division I basketball the last 15 years, for example. So that's not because I'm tutoring them, by the way. That is because they come here that way. They're wired that way. They've been taught that way by their parents and the people before them that influenced their lives. And it's also the culture of our program. And it's cool to make good grades here. It's not always cool to make good grades everywhere. So I think the kids, the people I get to work with and the people I get to work for at Belmont, keep me going. But I'm not going to coach till late, till I can't do anything, till I can't walk, till I can't. I mean, I want some healthy retirement years, and I want to get a chance to just be a basketball fan a little bit. I've never really been able to do that.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I saw that question and stuff you sent me, and I've thought about that, and maybe I'm not defining legacy very well, but most of the time when we talk about legacies, we're talking about someone who has been a prominent person. I mean, everybody has a legacy, but we don't ask many people about their legacies. Legacies seem to be people like presidents or great coaches or that kind of thing. And so my answer is that other people will determine that based on how I live my life every day. And so I'm not going to worry about what my legacy is, if that makes sense. That seems a tad bit egotistical for me to worry about my legacy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. Other people will determine that. I think it's the way you've lived. And I think your faithfulness and your character, your integrity, and it speaks volumes. And, you talk about coming into the locker room and leaving it better than when you found it. And what God's done through you here at Belmont, you've left it better, and you've impacted every young man, and that's a legacy that you poured into them. So
I certainly hope that the young men that have played here have had good experiences, that they're glad they came.
Yeah.
And I hope that the Belmont community as a whole feels that way. So if I'm thinking about what do I want people to think, those would be really important. I mean, these players become like your kids, and even more so when you're finished coaching them and they're gone. It's wonderful to get to spend time with your former players again. So I hope that's been good, but I'm the lucky one to have been here at Belmont.
Well, and thank you for modeling that for us. I mean, for all of us who are watching, and you've modeled that faithfulness and that consistency and doing it right and doing it with integrity. And even in a culture sometimes that gets to be challenging, you've done it well. And I just want to say thank you. And I pray for me, and I pray for all of us as men that we could grow up and be like that, And so thanks, Coach.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for being with us today.
Got it. Thanks.
Awesome.